I'm Krista from Plant Lux, and I am here today to talk to you about the Song of India, this beautiful Dracaena plant. How are you today? You good? Hopefully you are good. I know I am. It's beautiful weather outside. It's amazing. It's gonna be hot this week, but I love it hot. So I'm here for you every Monday and Thursday, so make sure that you hit that notification button to be notified when I post a new video. And if you are new to my channel, hi. All right, so let's get right into it. Today we're going to talk about some common mistakes with the Dracaena Song of India, and we're going to talk about some care tips and some other things. Okay, so let's get right into it. All right. So this plant right here is native to some islands, like Madagascar and Mozambique. It's tropical plant. The plant's origin is from a Greek word called Dracaena, or female dragon. So, female dragon. It does kind of look dragon-like, if you think about it. It's really cool looking. All right, so this beautiful, beautiful foliage is the most common cultivar of this particular plant. It has the yellow on the edges of the leaves and the green in the center. This is the most common one, but there are other cultivars out there. And obviously, if you're familiar with the Dracaena family, there are a couple of different types. I have a few Dracaena marginatas, different cultivars of that. And yeah. So first thing we want to talk about is the lighting situation. If you have a low light situation in your home, not a good thing for this plant, okay? It's a no-go. Lighting has to be medium to bright and direct sunlight. However, do not place it directly in a window where it's very hot or where it heats up during the day. You want to pull that back about 4 to 5 feet because it will scorch the leaves. So be very aware that you cannot have it directly in a south-facing window because this plant does not like it. What will happen if you have too much light exposure is the leaves will become bleached out and the color will fade, and then the canes, these stems, these canes, they will become spindly and unattractive. Okay, and the plant will not like it. It won't be healthy plant. It's not good for your plant. So make sure that you have east-facing windows fine, west-facing windows fine, north-facing windows fine, but having it in a corner where it's dark or where there's not enough light, it won't be happy, okay? So the lighting situation is important for this plant. All right, so next let's talk about watering. Watering is very easy, okay? This is a very drought-tolerant plant, so it enjoys drying out. I let it dry out about 4 inches inside the pot before I'll water mine. If I start to notice a lot of leaf or foliar fallout, a lot of them on the ground or whatever, then I'll go ahead and check it and water it. Because it is a pretty fast growing plant. When it starts to reach maturity, you have to kind of keep your eye on the plant because it does dry out more quickly the more that it grows. That makes sense. Okay, so with watering, I would say I water mine maybe once every week and a half. But again, that's because of the size pot that I have, my plant in, and the environment, the climate inside the home. Okay, so that's something to think about. Your watering regimen is going to vary depending on the size of your plant and the climate inside your home and the type of soil that you use. Okay, so when I water my plant, that leads me to the next topic, which is fertilization. I have my plants in my household on a constant fertilization regimen, and it's for all plants. I have them all on the same fertilization regimen. And that fertilization regimen is very simple. It's Jack's fertilizer every time I water. It's diluted. I have a 2-gallon watering container, so I use a half a teaspoon inside the 2 gallons, and that's what I do every time. Okay? That leads me to the next topic, which is if you have a fertilizer that you use that's organic and that's all you want to use, that's fantastic. I applaud you. I use what's easiest for me. That's not to say that other fertilizers aren't better or great, okay? So just do what works for you. If you wanted to try out the Jacks, I definitely recommend it. It's been a proven winner for me. So, all right, that leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is soil. This guy right here, you don't want it to have wet feet, okay? You want your soil to be a well-draining soil. I use the same kind of soil that I always use. That's not to say that other soils aren't great. I just use what works for me. I use the potting mix. It's the Miracle Grow. It's a well-draining soil. It seems to work. It's like a multi-purpose soil. Now, if you spend a lot of time at your nursery, picking out soil, building soil, great, that's awesome. But I just try to use the simple thing for me, which is the Miracle Grow potting mix. So I've tried it, it works. That's what I have in this one. And that's also what I have in my other Dracaenas, that particular potting mix. Do not ever get the potting mix though that has moisture crystals in it. Moisture crystals are the devil. Don't touch them with a 10-foot pole, okay? They're not good. They will kill your plant, I think. And they make your plant unhappy. Okay, moving on. My next topic is propagation. This plant is very easy to propagate. Really, you just cut the cane, you stick it in soil, or you can stick it in water. Either way works. It's very easy to propagate and make more plants. Yay. Okay, moving on to pests. This particular plant does have some pest pressures, okay? Not really though a problem if you know you get it as a very small plant and you never have insect troubles. You might never ever have a problem with pests with this plant. I've had mealy bugs, and what they like to do is they like to hang out inside the new growth, which is way down in there, and then they come out and kind of hang out on the leaf. So as you can see, that would be problematic, which is why your care regimen is so important, because you're going to have to spray that with water to get it out. So if you have a smaller plant, obviously your kitchen sink works fine, spray it off. If you have you know, a larger plant like this one, you're going to want to take it outside, spray it with the hose, make sure you're getting in all of the nooks and crannies in there and flushing out those mealy bugs. You know, and then after treating it, okay, if you can't take your plant outside, obviously shower works as well, because in the winter you're not going to want to expose this to cold temperatures. We're very unhappy. This plant has to have temperatures that are 70 to 80 degrees. Do not take it outside when it's cold. So anyway, you can spray it off in your shower, spray it off outside. It's up to you, okay? But after you spray it, always treat it with neem oil or some kind of insecticidal soap. I use neem oil. I make it using a neem oil extract, and I usually link it in the description below if you're interested. You know, if you'd rather pick it up at your local hardware store, whatever, it works either way. But I get the extract, and then I put like a dab of soap in there, and the soap and the oil emulsify with the water, and it makes for a really good treatment for your plant. I use the extract because that way I could, you know, save money, number one, and number two, control the ratios of the extract and how much is in the container. So that way I get the result that I want. So you would just go ahead and make sure you're spraying down inside the hole. If you wanted to, you could use a Q-tip. I've done that as well. Obviously, that sort of job would take a long time to go inside each of these little new growth areas with a Q-tip, but I have done it for some of them. It's just easier to spray it off, but if you really want to get technical, you could use a Q-tip. Okay, so after you spray it off, with water, you spray it with neem oil, you give it a good soak. And you know, I would just keep repeating that once a week until it's, you know, you're good to go. Now, one trick that I would do if I were spraying it off with a hose is I would cover the bottom of this with some cellophane, so that way whatever you're spraying, the eggs and the bugs don't get into the soil, because once they get down in here and start laying eggs, not a good thing. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're treating your plant, to cover the soil with some sort of barrier. That way whatever you're spraying off doesn't go in the pot. Another pressure that this plant has is brown and red spots. Fusarium, I think I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I apologize. But you'll see like little red or brownish spots. Now, depending on, you know, what research you do online, some people say to cut off the leaves. I mean, I leave mine on because I treat my plant regularly, but they're just these little red and dark colored spots. Anyway, I don't really see it as a problem, so I'm not really concerned. I just make sure that I'm treating my plant regularly to keep it insect free and to keep it healthy. Okay? So if you see the red and brown spots, you can remove those leaves, or if you wanted to remove the whole cane, you could do that as well, depending on what what you're going for there. Okay? So some other pest pressures that you might experience with this plant could be spider mites. I mean, I have experienced spider mites with my other Dracaena marginata, but there's really nothing going on with this one with spider mites yet that I know of. Okay. If you're treating your plant regularly and showering it off and spraying it with neem oil, generally you're not going to have any pest pressures, but spider mites is, you know, one that you might come up, and if it does, again, spray it off with a hose or in the shower and then treat it with neem oil. It's very simple to fix that issue. Okay. The other thing you might occasion upon is scale. Okay, and scale you'd have to remove with your fingernail or another device. I've also heard botanists or nursery owners discussing how they remove scale. I've heard vegetable oil, I've heard insecticidal soap, but generally you're going to want to get in there and scrape it off. You know, scale might be something that, you know, comes up, and if it does, obviously you're going to want to get right on it, because once that takes off and gets an infestation, that stuff is wicked, horrible to get rid of. So just make sure you're checking your plant every time that you care for it. That way, when you do notice a problem, you take care of it right away and it doesn't spread to your other plants, and then it doesn't end up harming your plant. So those are very easy treatable insects. So you just got to make sure you stay ahead of it. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is humidity. This plant is a tropical plant, so you know it's going to love humidity. Obviously, 80 to 90% is what it would love, but let's be realistic. I mean, we live in a house, not a terrarium. So, you know, there's a couple of ways that you can give it the humidity that it needs to make it happy. The first one would be buying a humidifier and having the humidifier somewhere near it so that it's kind of misting the plant, not to the point of bacteria or rot or anything, but just making sure that there's a lot of humidity in the air. Okay. Another thing you can do to make the plant happy with humidity is spraying it. You could spray it with a misting bottle of some kind. Just getting water on the leaves and spraying it up here. It loves, loves, loves that, okay? Water down in here sitting, doesn't love that, all right? Water up here, yes, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. Humidity is really important for this plant to be happy. Next I want to say that, you know, you could have like a tray of pebbles with water in it to keep humidity in the air. The idea though with that is not that the roots will go down into the soil to get more moisture. You don't want that to happen. You want to make sure the humidity is in the air. Easiest solution, get a humidifier. Humidifier is key. That's what I use. I use humidifiers. So I don't do the rock tray thing, just humidifiers. Potting up. Potting up should happen, according to the research out there, pot up every year. Now, just remember that if you do pot up every year, what's going to end up happening is your plant's going to get larger. You could probably push it to potting up every 2 to 3 years if you wanted to keep your plant small, but you're going to want to keep your eye on that root ball because you don't want it to get too root bound and you don't want it to run out of soil because without soil it's not going to get the nutrients that it needs to be a healthy plant. So just keep that in mind. Some common mistakes that people make when they fail with this plant is overwatering, and overwatering leads to root rot, and it also leads to these canes becoming mushy. So you know if you have a mushy cane, it's either because of overwatering or perhaps even disease or perhaps even root rot, okay? Now when the new plant comes in, you can see what a new cane looks like. It's all green and then it hardens later on. So how this happens, as the cane is growing upward, you know, its leaves are expiring. That's how you end up with this trunk-like, a cane-like appearance. Okay, so just note that if you have leaves that are falling off of it occasionally, that's completely normal. Okay, what's not normal though, and when you know you have a problem, is when there's several leaves falling off. Okay, generally that's a sign of, hey, I need to water my plant, or there might be some kind of disease happening, or it could even be root rot, okay? So just keep that in mind. If you see a lot of leaves expiring at a very fast rate, and let's say you didn't know that you had your plant near a vent, either an air conditioning vent or a heating vent, well, you know, make sure you check for that and don't put your plant there in the first place. But that could be also another reason why leaves would be falling off and expiring, is you might have hot air blowing on it or cold air blowing on it, and it doesn't like either of those things. So keep it away from the vents. All right. Another thing I'd like to mention is that this plant right here is one that you can prune and make it be the shape that you'd like it to be in. If you wanted to keep it more like a shrub or smaller, you can always propagate. You could cut, prune it. Some of mine are clipped. Obviously, pruning it does lead to adventitious growth also. Just kind of keep that in mind. It will continue to shrub out if you want it to be more shrub-like. If you want it to be more tree-like, obviously, you know, don't cut it back too much because it won't grow tall. All right, so I wanted to show you really quick over here. So you can kind of see this is a cane that's been cut. Okay, and this is adventitious growth right here. So you cut it and it sprouts out the sides. This is adventitious growth as well. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Also, I am brain dead and I have no ability. I'm like Dory, the fish. Phototropism, I think I'm saying that right. If I'm not, sorry. But basically the leaves will grow toward the sunlight, so just kind of keep in mind that they're going to reach, and that's completely normal. And that's why you should probably just make sure you're rotating your plant, you know, turning it, making sure that, you know, you're giving it all angles of the sun. So I would say just give it a quarter of a turn every couple weeks, maybe every month. Totally up to you. If you don't mind the reaching look, then by all means. You don't have to turn it if you don't want to. Anyway, that's my Song of India, Dracaena family. And I absolutely love this plant. It's so beautiful. I know that they use it all over Hawaii in floral arrangements and things like that. It's because it's so pretty. I highly recommend that you run right out and get one of these. They are slow growers, just so you know. To get one this big, you're going to start with a big plant because it takes several years for a plant to get this large. This is probably 15 to 20 years old. So generally the way I've seen them sold is like 3 in a container, and they're about this big. So if you want a large one, pot up every year, okay? And start large. Try to get the biggest one you can find if you want a big one, okay? If you want to keep it small, obviously prune it and don't up pot as often, okay? So that's a wrap. Hey guys, welcome back. so today I'm going to do some repotting. This is a Dracaena Song of India, and it's outgrown its pot. So today I'm going to show you, sort of the process of repotting this bad boy. And yeah, so let's get right to it. So guys, look at these amazing roots. Okay, so obviously desperate need of repotting. I mean, we're talking, this thing should have been repotted probably 5 years ago. There is no soil. It's all roots. It's all roots. So I'm just gonna breeze through here real quick and make sure there's no pests and so forth. I can't imagine where they would hang out. The roots are beautiful though, aren't they? They're orange. Have you ever seen orange roots before? Isn't this amazing? Wow, I'm speechless. This is the most beautiful root system I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I am honestly speechless. I can't believe they're orange. It's beautiful. Bad boy needs a new pot so badly. It's all roots, barely any soil. It's amazing that this thing's still alive. Okay, so obviously we're gonna go straight up to this giant size pot here. So we're gonna measure it out, and we want it to be probably sitting about right about in here. So that means I'm gonna need to put about 6 inches or so in the bottom of the pot. Don't worry, I have more soil. So guys, what I'm going to do now, spray it off with a hose and then fertilize it, then spray it with neem oil. So that's what I'm about to do. Okay, so guys, inside this watering can, I actually have a fertilizing regiment that's a little bit stronger than I normally use because this guy was so incredibly root bound and had no soil. So I'm going to give it a special treatment. If you're really not feeling safe about that, if you have this situation, then obviously just use your normal regiment. But for me, I gave it a little bit of a boost. And then I have this neem oil treatment that I'm going to spray the leaves with. It's not going to hurt the leaves. So if anything, it'll make them look beautiful and shiny. And it'll also help protect it from any pest pressures that it might have. So go ahead and water it first. You want to get the root ball pretty good because remember, it didn't have any soil around the root base. You're going to want to give it a good soak. Get in the center. You want to get all the way around the base. Soak it real good. Now, keep in mind that a big daddy like this is gonna be very heavy. So, enter some wheels. Because I'm not gonna be able to carry this thing anywhere. If you have a hand truck, you might want to use a hand truck, but I can wheel mine straight up into the garage using this thing, but I also have a hand truck in case I need it. moving a big size plant like this outside to do some indoor house plant care outdoors, it's kind of a trick. So make sure you either have a hand truck or you have one of these guys handy. I think this is like $15 at like a local Lowe's. I don't know if I can pick this up to put it on. Yeah, I'm gonna need someone's help. This is super heavy. Got it. Ah, I did it. All by myself. Yeah. And remember, when you're spraying this with neem oil, you're going to want to make sure you get the undersides of the leaves as well as on the top of the leaves. Now, my recommendation, and what I'm probably going to end up doing eventually, is getting one of those pump sprays where you can, basically it's operated by pressure, so you don't constantly have to spray like this. With a big plant like this, if you have like the one that you push and spray, that's like a better idea. Oh, another note, you don't want to do this when it's really hot out, like high noon or 2 p.m. area, because when it's really, really hot out, the oil will burn the leaves. So you want to make sure that it's overcast or it's like past sundown or somewhere where it's cool, because oil on leaves is kind of like putting suntan oil on a baby. You don't want to do that. Just so happens that now is the time when the sun decided to come out, but it has been overcast all day, so we're going to want to get this out of the sun as soon as possible so that the leaves don't burn. Guys, so that's a wrap. This is again Dracaena Song of India, and this is very easy care plant. If you pick one up and it's super root bound, obviously the first thing you do is you repot. You don't want to let things get too root bound. Plants don't generally like to be incredibly root bound. So that's a wrap, and I hope you liked this video. Hit that thumbs up if you did. I'm here for you every Monday and Thursday. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I really need your support and I appreciate it. And I'll see you back here next time. Thanks guys, bye.